Howdy, SOC 232 folks. Hopefully you're doing well, acclimating into the EKU system, and the start of your semester and term is going pretty darn well. For this little video, we're going to dip into what is this one link that I have here called the GSS Data Explorer. And the GSS, the General Social Survey, is the main data set that we'll be working on in this course. Now, as you see below, I have two different data sets already provided that you will be downloading and analyzing through the Jamovi software package. However, the data that's provided is often a bunch of numbers or codes, or the variable names in there, what we call mnemonics, are written in a way that are easy to pull up, but may not be the easiest to decipher, but the name itself. This is where the GSS Data Explorer will play a good role. Now, it should click on to a new tab from there. If it doesn't, this says it was open in a new browser window. If it didn't, go ahead and click the Open GSS Data Explorer in a new window, and it should pop up. Worst case scenario, Google search GSS Data Explorer should be the first one provided by the University of Chicago. And this data set package that we have is actually roughly about 50 years of data. Now, you can go ahead and create an account if you wanted to. We won't do that for here. We're just going to go ahead and search through some variables and get our feet wet. Now, I could go ahead and look through tons of different variables that fall from apparently 1972 all the way up to 2024. You could select specific years if you wanted to, or if you have specific ballots or value versions. It gives us tons of different options that are, if we wanted to look at different parts of time or other ways to analyze. We also can look into tons of different areas, whether you want to read up on marriage and the family, various social identities and characteristics like race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, religion, so on, as well as certain dispositions or beliefs, such as I believe our tax dollars should be going into the roads, or I believe that we should have fewer taxes. So for me, I'm a big movie fan. Look, when I go to click the typing our keywords, there's some very popular ones like gender, sex, education level, television. I'm a big movie person. So I'm going to go ahead and go to See Movie. And it looks like it gives us a part of the cultural module. So this module that they're working on, this little group of questions appears to come from the culture of the US. The GSS tags come from leisure, movies. The variable name is the mnemonic that it gives them is See Movie. And it's basically whether or not you went to a movie in the last year. And it gives us the survey question. Next, I'd like to ask you some leisure or recreational activities that people do during their free time. As I read each activity, can you tell me if it's something you have done in the past 12 months? And in this question was, go out to see a movie in a theater. It has the year's availability. So this question apparently was asked in 1993, 1998, and 2002, but hasn't been asked otherwise. So in your GSS of 2012 and 2018, it may not be there. That's okay. Now, they give us different values for our responses. And if I asked you, did you go out to see a movie in a theater in the past year? Your brain probably says there are two answers. There's yes and there's no. And there is the yes and no provided. And they'll code it as if it says yes, we'll code it as one. If it's no, we'll code it as two. And one of the reasons why they do that, yes and no are very short answers. That's not a big deal. But there might be some very, very long answers, many letters or multiple words. And so if they can create a code, a number to one of these responses, then the data set that they'll be able to pull up and transfer over and analyze, the computer won't take so long to run if it's just a number, a numerical value. Now, it's not necessarily a numerical variable because it would make sense to do specific mathematical operations. I'm not going to say there's a double yes and that equals no, 1 times 2. But we can still associate numbers to these responses, and it shrinks the files a little bit, especially when we have thousands of cases. Now, it wasn't just yes or no, though. In many situations that you will experience through your data analysis, there may be different values that are also associated depending on the year. If it was in a different year, it may have been given as not available in this year. It may be coded as a -70 or -70. Some people choose just not to respond. Maybe they didn't respond to that survey question. This is a questionnaire that was given out. Sometimes people may accidentally skip it or choose to skip it intentionally. And that non-response that we're dealing with is important to keep in mind. They may not know or they can't choose. Maybe it's like, I don't remember. And so in this case, if they don't know, it gives a more honest answer than necessarily leaving it blank because we don't know why they're leaving it blank. But we're also not choosing yes or no, which could accidentally be a false response. And then inapplicable, sometimes it's just they're not qualified for that group, so they're not being put in there. Now, in many of these cases, you'll have a yes or no, but if they're not, they might be missing. If they're missing, we'll look through in future modules how to deal with those missing cases, at least at the foundational level. You can go further and to see how certain variables interact with each other as well. So if I want to look at education level, and it has education level of person 1. Maybe it's in a household. So if education the first person is usually yourself, you'll have number of years in these sort of categories. You could do that with age and other stuff. And this is the beginnings of looking through and saying, all right, if I see EDUC1 as the mnemonic in my Jamovi codebook, so these codes you will eventually see up here. It comes from basically asking your education level or your highest level of education provided by the codebook with the specific responses. Right. We'll cover this stuff more in future videos on using Jamovi to getting comfortable with how to analyze our data. Take care, folks.